What's up, y'all, and welcome back to the Atlanta Falcons Podcast Network. I am Will McFadden. I am joined, as always, by Tori McElhaney, and it's week 2 of AT&T training camp here in Flowery Branch. Busy couple of practices,
yes.
A little bit of news and notes we got to get to, so we're going to empty the notebook on today's episode, kind of give you the nitty-gritty of everything that we have seen. We also, this week, got the chance to speak with our good friends Robert Mays and Steve Wyche, so you will hear those interviews kind of later on in today's episode. And then finally, by this point, you should know the drill. We got Know Your Foe.
Woo!
I will be talking about the Cleveland Browns. We know somebody who used to, hang around those parts, right?
A few somebody. Yeah.
So we'll get a little bit of a closer look at what's going on up in Cleveland. And then finally, before we get started, want to shout out Training Camp Live. Our final show is going to be Saturday at 7 p.m. live from Lanier High School. So if you want to see a practice, I believe there are still tickets available. Yeah. Go check it out. Go come join us. See the team out at Lanier High School. It's going to be so much fun.
Under the lights.
Under the lights.
Yeah.
Saturday night lights.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is.
It's going to be so much fun.
I'm excited because we did this at Seconder High School a couple of years ago, I believe.
It's a great just change of pace.
It is.
Scenery. Hopefully the weather is nice.
Yeah.
It's always up in the air, quite literally.
Quite literally, yeah.
But yes, it's something that is no longer up in the air, though, Tori, that we found out kind of just 30 minutes before we started recording. Jalon Walker.
Yes,
out for the season.
Out for the season with a confirmed ACL injury. Will wrote the story yesterday about him getting carted off the field. It was really a super tough moment. Like, even just, we know Jalon personally and professionally, and it was
such a nice guy. Like, everything you hear about him is true.
It is true. And he was poised for such a big year. I remember we were talking to Jeff Ulbrich earlier in like OTAs and mini camp about the expanded role that he was thinking and envisioning for Jalon Walker and how important he was. And then talking to Jalon Walker himself literally a couple days ago, the first couple days of camp, and him talking about expanding his role, him talking about it being a leader on this defense. How many times have I said in this very seat that I was expecting Jalon Walker to be the linchpin of this defense?
Yeah,
and that
32 times.
So many times I said that, and now we're looking at a world where the Falcons won't have Jalon Walker, and it's the harsh and heartbreaking reality of this football game. Like, it really is. And so, out for the season with an ACL injury. A lot of guys who have to step up, which I know that we'll talk later about at a later point in the show. But just right off the top, wanted to rip the Band-Aid and get that news out there for you guys, because it's tough. It's tough to see that for Jalon, and it's tough to see that for this defensive unit.
Yeah, it really is, because you mentioned Brick kind of early on, even back to UGA Pro Days. Like, he was talking about Jalon's kind of being more creative with him. And in year one, obviously, they wanted to really have him focus in on that edge role. He had 5.5 sacks. He was 4th in pressure rate amongst rookies. So, like, he, in a role that was different from what he was doing at Georgia, where he was the jack of all trades, and pass rush is so specialized and difficult. He did really well, I think, there in year one. And so I was very excited to see what he could do in year 2, especially we know how hard of a worker he is all throughout the offseason. He's here at the facility. He's in the weight room. He was putting in the work, and he is backing up a lot of the words that he has about being a leader and how vocal he is. He backs that up with actions. And so I have all the faith in the world that he is going to rehab as hard as anybody, that he's going to get back to being the player that he was. But it's what you go into training camp every year. You just say, God, let's just get out of here healthy.
Right.
Let's just get out of here healthy. And it's really hard when it's such a fun player to root for. It's such a nice person to root for, and we hate to see it. So Jalon Walker out for the season, but we will get into kind of when we get into the notebook just who we saw out there on the defense taking place for him. But another bit of news, a happier bit of news. Bijan Robinson has officially signed his extension. The Falcons get one of the most dynamic and exciting players in all of football under contract until 2030, as reports are saying.
Through 2030, Bijan locked in with Atlanta, becoming the highest paid running back in NFL history. Well-deserved for Bijan. I think we've talked to different players, and I had the chance to talk to Bijan himself earlier this morning. Literally, he put pen to paper, and I'm standing there like, yo, Bijan, like, your thoughts. He's so great, and he was talking a lot about how there is this certain type of legacy for players who spend a lot of their best years in one location.
100%.
He was talking about Kobe Bryant. Not the Kobe Bryant, the Atlanta Falcons with the C.
C-O-B-E-E.
The
K-O-B-E.
the Kobe Bryant. Talking about his, like, how you can't think of Kobe Bryant and not think of the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah. He was talking about MJ, Michael Jordan, and how much he was like they spent their not just their formative years, but the best years of their career with one team. He was like, there is a cool legacy part of that for him, and he said it mattered to him. He was like, obviously getting, the signing done, the contract extension done, back out at practice, all of those things are great. But he said for him, it really was like being able to be a part of this team and this organization at this point in time. And he was talking about, to see Drake get paid, Kyle, Matthew Bergeron, who that just happened recently too. All of those things, the fact that those guys all kind of came in together, they're the core of what this offense is, that gets to continue through 2029 and 2030. That's special to Bijan. That means something to him.
Which, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Because how often have we, over the last 2 decades or so, just publicly as kind of a society, I feel like we've shifted in almost the opposite direction, where you're seeing everybody's talking about more in the NBA, like the player empowerment and people just jumping teams. And
well, you see it at college football level, the
100
the portal.
transfers. So it's really nice and refreshing to hear somebody say, look, watching Chipper Jones play for the Braves his entire career meant a lot to me as a kid. Having Bijan Robinson say, I want to be here because it means something to wear one jersey and to embody kind of that team, that franchise, and be one of those guys that you look at in the legacy of the team. He's well on his way to being one of those players.
Absolutely.
And I just can't wait to watch him again this season.
I know, and he, as it relates to practice and him getting back out there, he's been out there the past couple of days, put the pads on after the report came out and all that, and they agreed to terms, and he's going through. Kevin Stefanski talked a little bit about it, said everything with the negotiations were very amicable with Bijan and his team, and that they were really happy that they were able to get the deal done. But there is going to be a little bit of a ramp up period for Bijan. We've seen him out at practice. He works on some one-on-ones and some team. He doesn't do any team stuff at this point in time. Not yet. We're not there yet, but that is a part of the ramp-up period. But he's out there. He's doing warm-ups. He's doing handoffs, all that kind of stuff.
Off to the side with trainers. Yeah, yes. He's active.
There is no one who I think is more hype when you see Zachariah Branch make a catch than Bijan Robinson. And so I think that's where we are right now today. Bijan back at practice, Bijan locked in till 2030.
We're obviously going to be talking a lot about Bijan Robinson throughout the course of the 2026 season, but for anybody who wants a bit more Bijan in their life at this very moment, we have covered him extensively on AtlantaFalcons.com. We've got incredible videos, the Art of the Juke series. We, I think, refreshed that up on the homepage. So go check that out. I'm working on something not quite done yet, but I'm excited to share it with you all very soon.
This was your summer project.
This was kind of my summer project, and I'm ready to finally unveil it to the world.
Yes.
One other bit of news for the offense, Tua returned to 11 on 11s on Monday, correct? And that was great. So he was dealing with a little bit of back tightness the first week. Seems like he is slowly but surely kind of overcoming that and getting mixed in more. I thought today was his most active day so far on Wednesday. What did you see from Tua this week? Yeah,
it really is. We talk about Bijan's ramp-up period. It really feels like we're watching Tua's ramp-up period as well. And so he was in there a little bit on 11 on 11s, had one 11 on 11 period on Monday. Tuesday, no pads, so it was more of a glorified walkthrough. Didn't do the 2-minute drill stuff
Tuesday
at the end.
Tuesday was more of like a hodgepodge of a lot of guys mixing and matching.
A lot of moving parts on Tuesday. And then, yes, as you said, Wednesday, a lot more action for him. And he did say on Tuesday that the hope was by Wednesday and then later in the week being full go. Nice. So that's what we're seeing from Tua right now. And I really think that as we're still, we have a pin in Michael Penix Jr. at this point in time. He's still not yet cleared for full team participation just yet. This is, I think, Tua's chance, as you'll hear from Steve Wyche later on in this show, Tua's chance to maybe start working and taking all of those reps with those ones, the guys that if he's quarterback number one come week one, he'll be throwing to.
Yeah, I thought what Steve had to say in our conversation later was really well said about kind of like the state of the quarterback competition here in Atlanta. But I do want to, just because I've seen on social media, and maybe you have too, kind of this belief that maybe Michael Penix hasn't been doing as much as we have seen him out there doing.
Yeah,
like the
I've
fact
seen that too.
he's not, if people say he's still injured and he's not cleared, he's just not been doing 11 on 11, that one very specific thing. But he's out there throwing in individual position drills. He's out there throwing routes versus air. He's throwing the receivers in one-on-one drill. Like, he's 7-on-7s. He's doing pretty much everything outside of that one very specific 11 on 11.
Right, yeah. I don't want it to get confused in when we're talking about Michael Penix not being cleared for team stuff. Like you said, he's doing everything else. I actually think that Kevin Stefanski said it best when we talked to him. I believe it was on Monday, and he was asked about Michael, and he goes, you'd be hard-pressed to even think that he's limited when he's out there, because he has like such the strength off of that back leg, his front leg, and he's throwing the ball as well as, in terms of the deep ball, the go ball, he's throwing it as well as we've seen him. So I think, to your point, I wouldn't get all wrapped up in like Michael Penix is not like fully healthy and he looks not fully healthy. I think that's beside the point. I think he looks very healthy, and I think this is one of those things that they're going through the process. This is his third. He said it himself. This is my third ACL tear. We have to be smart about how we're doing this, and so that's, I think, what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think it makes perfect sense being cautious. But again, he is able to get out there, get the reps, throw the football, get his arm loose, like all of that.
Run around the pocket, like
has been going
do
on.
some
I
dropbacks.
thought he had a moment today where the ball itself, I want to say it may have been intercepted, but like that was kind of besides the point, because there was a little bit of a situation where he kind of stepped up in the pocket and moved out. There were he rolled out to his left. He bought time. I even heard the defensive coaches yell, plaster, plaster, which is like, all right, we're full on scramble drill here with Michael Penix Jr. So that mattered to me way more than the outcome of the play, because again, it's training camp. That's what this is for. But the comfort to move up and out in the pocket was huge. Kind of like when Kirk chased down that play, his first after the Achilles injury. And I was like, I guess he's good.
Yeah.
I guess he's good if he can do that.
Yeah.
All right, let's spend about 10 minutes on kind of our notebook from this week of practices. Let's start with just maybe some guys who have impressed us.
Okay.
Is there anybody who has stood out to you Monday through Wednesday?
Yeah, I think a main storyline that I've been really fascinated by, because it's different than what it was the first week, is Avion Terrell getting a few nickel reps and getting a handful of them with the ones specifically. We talked last week about how Sidney Brown, Darnay Holmes, those are the guys with that that first team defense that's really getting the go of it. Well, now things are starting to shift a little bit. We've seen more Avion Terrell coming in at the back end of some 11-on-11 drills with the first team defense and getting some work inside. And then it's funny because you see him over the past 3 days where he will he'll stay on the field when the twos come out, and he'll just shift right over to the outside. So they're doing some cross training with him right now that I think has been really fascinating. So he's somebody who, in that storyline of like, how much are they going to put on his plate with both outside and inside responsibilities? It seems right now that they're upping that responsibility to where we are today. Yeah,
I think that that's a great call out, because he is somebody who we have seen progressively, even going back to OTAs and minicamp. It just seems like every time we see him, there's a little bit more on his plate, and he's doing a little bit. He looks a little bit more comfortable. So great call out. Ironically enough, I'm sticking in the secondary. I'm going to say Mike Hughes. I think this week he's been a player that has really just jumped off the page to me. He's had like 3, I think, pass breakups so far in practice just this week. Seems in tight coverage, and again, like he's often going up against Drake, going up against Jahan Dotson, going up against Zachariah and Olamide. So I thought he's looked really, really smooth. Been paying a close attention to kind of the wide receivers later down in the thing, and I think Dylan Drummond has looked sharp. Chris Blair, I noticed running, and it's always hard, right, because packages are a thing. So I don't want to say like Chris Blair's running with the starters, but there were moments in kind of like some of the walkthrough looks and things where he was out there in the packages that had the other starters. So that's notable to me.
Let's go back really quickly to what we were talking about at the very beginning. Jalon Walker obviously out for the season. what have you seen today? Because you're doing the camp report today, so I was kind of running around because we had a bunch of news. Bijan signing, the news about Jalon, unfortunately. What did you see at the outside linebacker position as they're entering into a Jalon Walker-less world?
Love it. Great question, because that is where I was going next. We saw, again, I think they're trying everybody there right now just to see. There were even some snaps, and we talked to John Timu, the outside linebacker coach, after practice, and he was kind of like, yeah, we're looking at a lot of options. I saw snaps with Kendall Daniels and Harold Perkins Jr. out there on the edge in a five-man front.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Harold Perkins Jr., I understand. In a lot of ways, I think that is smart and wise and interesting to be all right, here you go. But Kendall Daniels was a surprise to me a little bit.
Yeah, Harold Perkins Jr. I think has when you look at his film from LSU, like he has that background as an edge rusher. A lot of what he was doing, especially his first couple of years when he was a freshman All-American, he was getting a lot of work coming off the edge in certain looks. And so that does feel like a natural space for him to be in. But I agree, Kendall Daniels, we've talked so much about him being this hybrid safety. We're also getting him up off the edge with his length and his height, I think is very interesting.
There were legitimately snaps at Oklahoma where Kendall Daniels, one play is middle linebacker, the next play he's nickel corner, the next play he's edge rusher, and then the next play he's safety. That is the versatility he brings. I just kind of forgot about it for a second because we're not in draft season anymore.
Right. And, Kendall Daniels, he talked to us at the back end of last week, I believe. All the days are running together, you guys. But he talked to us about how he has this calf injury that was a big reason why he didn't really participate that much in rookie minicamp and OTAs, and because it was something that nagged him throughout his final year in college, and so he's like slowly but surely getting back. So we haven't seen him as much as we've seen Harold Perkins, Divine Diablo, Christian Harris, and now that we're getting to see him more, it is funny because it's like, oh yeah, he does do this. He does everything.
The other guys that I saw, and again, there's like the 4-man fronts and the 5-man fronts, right? So I think you're going to see different players in different roles, but in the bigger packages, Cameron Thomas was out there, Braylon Trice was out there. Even noticed Brandon Dorless kind of sliding over to play some of that five technique outside of tackle.
I will mention too that was some stuff that they were doing even before Jalon's injury, right? Like there were some times where you were seeing Brandon Dorless moving out there in those 5-man.
That was his game at Oregon. He played like 0 to 7 technique.
Right.
Like he was all over the line.
Yeah. So this is all like, I think Jalon's injury just heightens this stuff, right?
Yeah. But there's the trickle down effect. Obviously, you wanted Brandon Dorless next to Jalon Walker, ideally, but that's what this time of year is. And if I had to, I think Cameron Thomas is somebody who really has an opportunity here. I think Braylon Trice is somebody who really has an opportunity here because they are maybe your most typical edge defenders in like run versus pass, kind of all of that, the well-roundedness. It is the pass rush juice. Like, where does that part come from?
Right.
Obviously, James Pierce Jr. is a candidate there for that. Aziz Ojulari is somebody who John Timu says he wants to get more production out of, but the first-round pedigree is there. So they've got some options, but they also have a lot of work to do to try to figure out, okay, how do we fit this together? Because as you and I have talked about so much, the versatility aspect of Jalon Walker's game was probably going to be big this year.
Yeah.
After parting ways or after seeing Caden Ellis leave in free agency. So it's just how do you replace that is the question.
Yes, and then I know that Greg Beadle's team president for the Atlanta Falcons went on Fox 5 earlier this morning, Good Morning Atlanta, and he was asked about the James Pierce Jr. situation, and he did say that the Falcons will know more about that in the coming days and weeks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
Must have been out of practice.
You are, and okay. I saw that Kelly Price, Fox 5, asking the question about kind of what the timeline is, and that's the newest update there per Greg Beadles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the outside linebacker position. Is there any other offensive line has been kind of also an area. I think I've seen Brandon Walton is a player who has kind of slowly just ticked up the depth chart a little bit. It is still Michael Jarrell who is mostly running, I think, with the ones at that right tackle spot, while Jawan Taylor remains on the active PUP list. But Brandon Walton is somebody who I think now has just kind of shifted up a little bit. So I'll be curious to watch him a little bit more. And he's somebody to pay attention to in the preseason, I think.
Yeah, a lot of heavy rotation at that right tackle spot recently. Getting Brandon Walton in with the ones from time to time. Even Ethan Onyanwa, who was a rookie draft pick this year coming in, him getting a little bit of run with the ones. So they're really trying to see what they have there. And I think it really is, to me, it's Michael Jarrell's spot right now, and they're trying to see if there's building some more competition there. We don't have an update on Jawan Taylor and his status outside of being on active PUP. Kevin Stefanski was asked about that earlier this week, and he said nothing really new. That's why you see a lot of the three guys that we just mentioned.
Yeah. Another offensive lineman I know you have been pretty in on him from the jump, but James Brockermeyer. I was watching him kind of during the 11-on-11 late at the end of the practice today. It had a scrimmage feel to it, and he had some really, really nice blocks, kind of both in pass protection, just picking up stunts, twists, things like that, but also climbing to the second level in the run game. I see what the coaching staff sees in him, and he's going to be a fun developmental player, I think, to keep an eye on.
It was really funny because during the week, when we're in the building and working on stuff, we have a TV on, and they were showing highlights from Miami. I don't know who from Miami they were talking about, but they're talking about the Miami offense, which James Brockermeyer was a part of, and there was a touchdown run, and he just absolutely sealed the guy to break open. I believe it was their running back, and it was. I mean, you can see from his college film that, hey, even though this was a guy who was undrafted, could have a nice little career here in the NFL. Yeah,
I'd forgotten he played for Miami, and I remember looking up, and I was hey, cool, I can scout.
I know, we're like, oh, James Brockermeyer.
Yeah, right. Awesome. I think that'll do it for kind of emptying the notebook right now. We forgot to do Camp Champ last week, so before we kind of wrap up and get out, who was your Camp Champ last week?
Yeah, everybody's clamoring at home for Camp Champ. My Camp Champ from
the masses have been just killing us and letting us know.
Where's Camp Champ? My week 1 Camp Champ was Zachariah Branch.
Same.
And
mine too.
I thought that Zachariah Branch had a really good first week of practice. He looks fast. He looks sharp. He's somebody who I think is really, you can see the connection even between like him and Drake London a little bit just in that room, and Drake really hyping him up today, picking up maybe when he had a drop that he didn't want. So I really have liked what I've seen from Zachariah Branch and think that he's carving a nice path for himself forward.
Yeah, I toyed with C.J. Henderson, but I think Zachariah Branch was, from kind of the first week, the standout. Who do you got this week?
Yeah, I've got Harold Perkins Jr.
That's a good choice.
I know that I talked a lot about Harold Perkins Jr. in our camp preview episode, and I was like, just keep an eye on him. I think that he's somebody who Jeff Ulbrich would really like to get involved early, and that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing a heavy rotation with him in with the ones alongside Divine Diablo. Yep. Obviously, still Christian Harris taking quite a bit of those first team reps, but Harold Perkins is getting in there, and some days he's getting in there a lot. So I think that is very interesting, and especially now with Jalon Walker out for the season, I think that Harold Perkins Jr. and kind of that young guy who can do a lot of things, that's going to matter.
Yeah, he will have an opportunity, I think, ahead of him. So that's a great choice. Talked about him a little bit earlier, so I won't go on here, but Mike Hughes. I think this just in the last
few
days.
This is the Mike Hughes podcast.
Again, I'm just trying to steer it in that direction. This is Mike Hughes' podcast now. But I think he's just been really locked in. He's been right in the receiver's hip pocket and kind of like any kind of route that you're looking for. A few pass breakups, just like the confidence that he's playing with, doesn't seem fazed by anything. So Mike Hughes, that's my Camp Champ. Harold Perkins Jr., Zachariah Branch week 1. So we will keep track of that and monitor it throughout the rest of the training camp and preseason. But that'll do it for us today.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned, though, because we still have 2 interviews. First with Robert Mays, then we got Steve Wyche, and then at the tail end, I will come back and talk about the Cleveland Browns for this week's Know Your Foe. So don't go anywhere, but that will do it for us on kind of the training camp notebook dump. And we will see you all next week. Audible will be on Tuesday, and then they will be prepping for the first preseason game.
Wow.
Tori, can you believe the first preseason game is next week?
No, I cannot. It's one of those things where it's just like it sneaks up on you every single year.
It does. And we're going to be busy around it because we are going to have both a pregame podcast on Thursday and then a post-game podcast kind of recapping what all happened, maybe who helped themselves in the first preseason game, and that'll be in the wee hours of Saturday morning. So send your thoughts to our producer, Jared, who is just going to be working hard on that one after the game. So thank you all again so much for listening. Stay tuned for those interviews and for Know Your Foe. But for Tori, we will see you next time.
I am so excited to welcome my friend Robert Mays of The Athletic back to the podcast studio. You joined us, I believe, last summer.
It was last year.
On your tour of training camps, your training camp tours. Robert is one of my favorite podcasters, people who I just love talking to because I love hearing your brain work. So let's start with the news of the day. We are recording this on today's Wednesday, right? Mm-hmm. All days run together in training camp. Wednesday, Bijan Robinson reportedly agreed to a 3-year contract extension earlier this morning. Your overall thoughts, just as we're getting into the news of that today, and where you felt like this team was with Bijan in that negotiation period.
Even sometimes when you reset the market at a certain position, it's like, oh, that's pretty expensive for a guy. Like, is that worth doing? With him and with running back specifically of his caliber, it's such a weird market. Mm-hmm. He's making less than Matthew Bergeron. We're good. Right? Like, and when you think about his impact holistically, it's when you find a superstar at that position, I would actually argue that it's a good place to spend your money because relative to other things, tight end's the same way.
Right.
Like if you have a pass catching tight end and you can use him as a de facto wide receiver, and we've got the top of the tight end market is $19 million a year and the top of the receiver market is 40 plus, there's value to be found there. Yeah. And I would argue that running backs of his caliber, the Bijans, the Jahmyr Gibbses, the Christian McCaffreys that have this holistic impact on the offense, you shouldn't even blink about giving him a deal like that. And so the fact that he reset the market, the fact that that was the number, not the least bit surprising, he's deserving of it. I think the other part of it is this is always a question about who are you spending your money on? Mm-hmm. And if you think about Drake, Bijan, it's not even talent. It's that we are very comfortable having these people be the foundation of what we're putting our organization on. And so on every single level, it checks every single box, and good for him. I'm happy I was here on the day that it happened.
I know. I was like, you picked the right day to come out here. So I would love to pick your brain about this because this is an idea that I've been toying with for a little bit, and it's about what I'm calling the renaissance of the running back. And what I mean by that is I remember when Bijan and Jahmyr, that draft class, and everybody was in the conversation of Saquon was about to get his deal. You didn't really know what that was going to look like. Christian McCaffrey. Like, there were all of these questions about the running back, and the devaluation of the running back position was the top of the conversation leading into like that offseason. Now you're seeing what Saquon did, and obviously Bijan Robinson getting the deal pending Jahmyr Gibbs, but there seems to be, and I would love your thoughts on this renaissance of the running back position and people seeing the value in some of these offense-changing type of players in kind of some of the guys that I just named. What are your thoughts on where the running back position was maybe 5 years ago and where it is today?
It's a fascinating bit of movement. We did a whole podcast about it right before the draft, just about the idea of, are we wrong about the way we've talked about running back value over the last 5 years? And I think part of the answer to that was yes, but part of the answer was the landscape has shifted, and I think we need to reevaluate where we are. There's a bunch of different considerations. I think, like I said, if it's $22.5 million for a player that's impacting the game like that, paying a guy like that, that's okay. You can live with that from a number salary cap perspective. When it comes to drafting guys as high as Bijan was drafted, Ashton Genty, obviously Jeremiah Love this year, I think you can look at it in a few different ways. Recently, running backs drafted in the top half of the first round, those have typically been guys that we've been good at identifying the special talents that deserve to be drafted that high. The hit rate on those players has been very good. And I think that's a point for taking running backs that high. The problem for me is that when you look at where you can find impact players at running back, it drifts a little bit further into the draft. This isn't about finding a guy in the 5th or 6th round. It's about how many difference-making players can you find in the 2nd round at running back compared to offensive tackle, pass rusher.
Right.
The answer is more running backs are found at that spot.
Right.
So I don't think it's a matter of on-field value. I think it's a matter of if you're spending a first-round pick on that position, you're bypassing positions that are hard to find outside of the first round. But when you have the special guys, you're not going to be upset that you did it, right? I mean, like especially on a team like this right now, this is such a great moment to understand his value because now we're in this place where the roster's in transition. We know that, right? It's a new regime. They had to kind of pull back a little bit on the spending this offseason. You're kind of getting by at your other receiver spot. And you feel better about your ability to do that because you have Bijan Robinson.
Right.
And so the bucket of those running backs, there aren't many of them, but there are a few select guys where the on-field impact, the versatility, what he allows you to do with the rest of the way that you build your offense, those players have outsized value compared to how we used to think about it 5 years ago. And then the last part is that the running game is back. If we're going to live in a world where all these teams are going to be playing the shell defense and playing with light boxes, we've seen a significant uptick in rushing percentage compared to what the league looked like in 2020 or 2019. Right. And so if we're going to be running more, in theory, the running back is a little bit more valuable. And so it's a fascinating conversation.
Yes.
And I think it's just such a cool reminder that nothing is set in stone with this sport ever, because it's all going to come back around. Like we're going to have, and I think it's even faster now because when you think about, all right, if you're Kevin Stefanski and I want to go look up every single play that Bijan Robinson was lined up in the slot last year on 3rd and 7+, and the other team was in nickel. He can do that in 10 seconds.
Right.
And I think that it creates faster evolution, and it creates that cycle spinning faster and faster. And so I think it's harder to pin down what is a hard and fast rule about the way that we should build this team versus something that we should maybe be a little bit more flexible about. And the way that running back has changed, I think, is a really good example of all of that stuff.
Let's segue this conversation into some scheme talk, because I would love to get your thoughts on, okay, so Kevin Stefanski comes in. We know what type of play caller he is. Tommy Rees, we know a little bit, only a little bit. He was able to play call for Nick Saban in Alabama, had half of a season under his belt with the Cleveland Browns last year. They have talked a lot about incorporating more gap with the wide zone stuff that this offense specifically has done really well in the last couple of years. When you look at, and obviously Bijan Robinson coming from Texas, the gap style stuff was his bread and butter there. So when you think about the next evolution of what this offense could be in its run game, where do you think that Tommy Rees and Kevin Stefanski can take it?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that's exactly where it's going to go. And I think it's multiple different things. I think it's Tommy's desire to do that, but when you look at that, what I appreciate so much about Kevin Stefanski in general is that there is a real humility about my ideas aren't always the best ideas. Like I'm willing to go out and seek out other things, and whoever has the best plan, that's what we're going to go with. He didn't know Tommy Rees from Adam when he hired him as his tight ends coach. Right. He just thought, this is a guy that I think will bring good ideas into this building, and I think he's a real believer in what Tommy is as a coach. But when you look back at what the best version of those Browns teams were, when Bill Callahan and Kevin worked together, it was a lot of gap scheme stuff. And that's because that's where Bill comes from. I think there is an openness. Kevin, I think when he was the offensive coordinator in Minnesota, there was very much a true blue belief in a lot of the Gary Kubiak ideas. Yes. And that was before he even worked with Gary. I think just from afar, he appreciated those ideas. And that was like the best version of football was we're going to tie the run and the pass together. We're going to run a lot of zone, a lot of play action. But I think he's been willing to evolve based on who his players are and what the best answer is for them. Bill Callahan comes from a varied run scheme world. And so if you have the guards to do it, and when you have Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio, you did have the guards to do it, right. You'd be doing yourself a disservice a little bit if you're comfortable living in that world not doing it. When Dwayne Ledford was here, I understand why they wanted to live in a very specific world because that's his background. Yeah. If you're somebody that is one of those like dyed-in-the-wool outside zone guys, you're able to understand where the weaknesses are and how teams are going to, all right, teams are going to do this, this, and this because they know we do X. Right. Well, now I know how to pivot away from those things because I've seen them a million times. There's validity in doing it that way. Yeah. But I still think with Bill here now, he comes from a world where we're going to do a million different things and we're going to do it well, and I expect to see more of that stuff from them. Bill Callahan has been one of the more fascinating people that I feel like I've had the chance to talk to this year. You know? And, I mean, every time, he's the type of person that every time I talk to him, I feel like I get a little bit smarter. Yeah. Simply from talking to him. And so I love that you bring up his history and who he is as a coach. Let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks before I let you go. I feel like I have to ask, right? Sure. Like, it's so funny because we're talking about all these other pieces of the offense, and yet the one that everybody's talking about right now, we're 10 minutes into this and we're getting into the quarterbacks. Tua, Michael Penix.
where do you kind of see this thing going? And not even into week 1, but potentially into week 10, 11, 12.
There's part of me that still thinks for the long-term health of the franchise, is it best to see what you get out of Michael Penix, because there's potentially some unrealized potential that we have not seen from him yet. With Tua, I think we kind of understand what he is. But I also think that there's an argument that that's why Tua should be the choice. Like, we understand what he is. We feel like we have a clearer picture of what we can be offensively with him as the quarterback, in part because when you look at what he was in Miami at his best and just his ability to distribute the ball within that offense, if you're starting from a place as the offensive staff here with, I'll ask you, what is the best thing about this offense?
Bijan Robinson.
Okay, and what else?
The run game in general, but I think like Drake London, Kyle Pitts.
The three guys that got paid a lot of money this offseason.
Your playmakers.
Your playmakers are the best part of this offense.
Yeah.
And so if your playmakers are the best part of this offense, what do you want out of a quarterback? A guy who can access the playmakers. And I think right now, there's probably a really solid argument that Tua is the best pathway to that. And even if you're in a place where we know that the starting quarterback for the 2027 or 2028 season might not be on this roster, this is still year 1 of a regime. You want to create buy-in. You want to create proof of concept. This isn't a year you can punt on. And so if you think that Tua is your best chance for putting the best possible product you can on the field because he allows the playmakers to sing, I can understand that being the choice in the short term.
What do you have kind of expectations-wise for the Atlanta Falcons this year? I know you're talking about it being year 1 of this regime, and Matt Ryan, Ian Cunningham, Kevin Stefanski. What do you see them building here?
I think it's about making sure when we walk out of this season, there's a couple teams like this. I think Arizona's kind of in this position where, and we do this every year on our show for every team, like what is success for this team this year? And it's different for every team, right? And for Atlanta, I think their expectations should be a little bit higher than what the Cardinals are. But for Atlanta, I think if you're in a position by week 10, week 11, and we find ourselves being like, man, I wonder who the quarterback for the Falcons is going to be next year because of how well the skill position players are, because we see Tommy Rees in this role and we're like, he's a difference-making play caller. If that is the way we're talking about this team and we kind of understand that their quarterback of the future isn't here and we're excited to see what that guy looks like, that'd be a good place to land. I don't think it matters what the record is as part of all of that. If that means you're a 6-win team because your defensive front is a huge question because your right tackle hasn't solved this year, that's okay. Right? Like, this is a team in transition. And I think as long as by the end of that, the first step of that transition, we can be really excited about what the foundation of it looks like, that's the most important thing. I know that's not an overly exciting answer, but I think sometimes when year 1, that's what matters. Yeah,
I think sometimes realism is where you have to live for a little bit. I completely agree. So honestly, I know I said it in the middle of this conversation. Anytime I talk to Bill Callahan, I feel like I get a little bit smarter. Anytime I talk to Robert Mays, I feel like I get a little bit smarter. So thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me just about the state of the Falcons and your overall thoughts. And have a great time on the rest of your training camp tour.
I'm always happy to do it, even though the last 2 years we've had to do it when I'm all sweaty after practice. So this is the worst I ever look on a camera is when I do this with you in this room.
You know, and that's special. It's special. Thank you,
Robert.
It's
about trust.
It is always a pleasure to be joined by Steve Wyche, Chief National Reporter for the NFL Network /ESPN.
/ESPN, you gotta add that now.
Steve, every training camp I look forward to the chance to sit down and chat with you. So thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thanks for inviting me. You know, it's always a pleasure to come down to the A, chat with you guys, chat about Falcons football, see a lot of old friends, new friends. Always good to be back.
This is like your second home.
It is.
It really is.
Kind of really is. My mom still lives in Dunwoody.
Right. I was about to say, actually truly is.
And you're coming to us on a big day. The reports out there that Bijan Robinson has agreed to a new contract. The latest in a line of kind of young guys that they're keeping around for the foreseeable future. We'll start with Bijan, though. How important has he been, and how important do you foresee him being over the next kind of like 3-4 years for this team?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's arguably the best running back in the NFL. You know, he runs the ball so well, tough, explosive plays, but he catches it. I mean, he had, 70-some catches last year as well, almost 2,000 combined yards. So when you've got a player you don't necessarily have to pull off the field, you have the flexibility to do so, he's vital. I mean, he is the straw that stirs the drink. You talk about some of the other players, Kyle Pitts, who they've extended, Drake London, who they've extended, Bergeron, the guard, who they extended. These are clearly core pieces that I've identified, saying this is who we want for whenever we find our long-term quarterback, whether it be Tua, whether it be Penix, whether that person is not on the roster. We have got those pillars in place. And Tori, we talked about the way this Bijan Robinson extension is structured, a ton of flexibility because a lot of the new money doesn't kick in until 2 years down the line. So again, they've got ways that they can really manipulate the salary cap if they have to.
Yeah. When you look at the fact that Ian Cunningham, first-time GM, comes in here and gets these deals done, we're talking about four big-time deals for the organization to, like you say, keep these young pillars in place. How do you evaluate kind of where he's at in his own maturation as a first-time GM based on the deals that he's been able to get done so far?
Well, I mean, it comes to show he's not doing this blind, right? They had a plan. Let's identify who the core pieces are. Let's get them taken care of. Let's get some of them done early, like Bijan and Kyle Pitts. They got them done early. They did not have to do these right now. They got them done early. Let's structure them in ways that gives us flexibility, and then let's continue to draft well. Let's continue to try and identify veteran players we can get in here. But, I mean, Ian Cunningham, it's not like he's new, right? He's a first-time GM, but he's been around. He's worked around a lot of really strong people who have cap sense, who know how to come up with 3, 4, 5-year structures and plans. So this is why he was so coveted. I mean, the Falcons got him, but a lot of teams wanted him. So, again, it goes to show he knows what he's doing, and this isn't necessarily a new thing to him.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Ian's time in Chicago, and I think one of the fascinating things is they kind of did it a few different ways. They kind of tried going about the offensive line. We're going to draft a lot of guys. Okay, that didn't pan out the way we thought. We're going to go sign a bunch of. So he's got, as you mentioned, that experience, and I think identifying the players you want to invest that money into is important here. But what kind of message, in your experience, does that send to kind of the rest of the locker room when you're coming in first year here? These are our guys.
Yeah, like, look, we didn't draft you, but we know what you can do. And again, it also signals the type of character of these players. Like, you're not going to extend people you think down the line could trip up character-wise and get into trouble and all of a sudden make your decision look bad to extend them. So they identified that part. And again, you know, it's a great point you made about Chicago. They tried to draft linemen. It didn't work. So they went and got a veteran lineman, and it worked. Now they got flexibility to do so. They also see, okay, Jake Matthews, how much longer is he going to play? We've got to find something to right tackle at some point for the long term. But we do have our pillars in place, and we can do things, whether it be in free agency or whatever, to go find the pieces to fit in place. That's an experienced person who's learned from a lot of people. If he doesn't know something, he can pick up the phone like, hey, I'm trying to get this done. But he's got those resources at his availability to do so. You
brought up the quarterbacks a couple answers ago, and let's pull on that thread, that quarterback thread. Have to, right?
Yeah.
Mike and Tua, where do you land on what you need to see from, let's put you in Kevin Stefanski's shoes for a second. You have both of these guys. Obviously, Mike's return to play timeline is what it is. But what do you need to see from both of those guys when fully healthy to make that decision on who's starting?
Let's not even play the hypothetical card. Play the reality card. I need Tua to seize the job. He has got an advantage right now of being able to be on the field, seize the job. I know they're being cautious with him with this back tightness. Get in there and win the job, because it's not just about what you do. It is how the 10 other guys in that huddle respect you, trust you, and respond to you. And if you haven't established that yet, you have left the door wide open for Michael Penix when he comes back healthy. Because he has a history with some of these players, and 2, you didn't seize the job. So I don't even want to get into hypotheticals right here. I think Tua has the ability, the experience, and the know-how to come in and win this job and not just be a placeholder for Michael Penix. He can win this job and win ball games, but he has got to be completely right and get out there and seize the opportunity. Players who don't seize opportunities, to me, you've just you just have not done enough to make me think I can put all my cards on the table for you.
Is there a quarterback based on, and I know that good coaches are always going to kind of tailor their offenses to the strengths of their players, but knowing what we have seen from Tommy Rees, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, do you think either one of these quarterbacks meshes with that style?
I think they both do. I like Tua clearly does, because he's played in this. This is not necessarily a stretch from what he did in Miami. It is a West Coast outside zone stretch, timing type of scheme with a few wrinkles. That's not to say Michael Penix couldn't do the same thing.
Right.
I mean, it was just, and you guys know this, man. I used to watch the Falcons last year and just want to throw something through the TV, like diversify what you're doing in the offense. Get under center. Don't stay in pistol all the time. It limits what you can do. It gives you tells and things like this after a while. And it's again, if Michael Penix is put in situations to do this, he has the athleticism. Even though he doesn't run much, he has the athleticism to do so. He clearly has a spectacular arm. But I think Tua, again, in terms of systems matching, but that said, Kevin Stefanski is not, I'm fitting a square peg into a round hole type of guy either.
Yep.
He can change. I mean, you saw him last year when they had the quarterback struggles up in Cleveland make it a tight end friendly offense. So you had Fan and Njoku with more than 100 catches.
Right.
Jerry Jeudy was not great last year in part because of the quarterback situation, so they kind of moved off of him a little bit. But Kevin Stefanski, they went for they're more than anything, let's not get it twisted. This is a run-first offense. Think of Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
And all of the great things he did in Cleveland.
Love to think of Nick Chubb.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's what this offense is going to be. And Nick Chubb was most successful when his quarterbacks went under center. Okay, when they got Deshaun Watson, played a lot more shotgun, that running game was not the same. So if they can get these quarterbacks, and this is the trend around the NFL to be under center a lot more, that's when this offense is going to look its purest. And we know we've seen Tua do that a little bit more than Michael Penix.
Before we get you out of here, let's flip over really quickly to talk about the defense.
Yep.
And, we've just spent 10 minutes talking about Bijan, Drake, Kyle, Matthew Bergeron, this offense line, the quarterbacks. The offense in and of itself is a gigantic storyline of the Atlanta Falcons right now. My question to you is, did the Atlanta Falcons do enough in terms of roster construction for its defense that we're seeing for the offense?
Boy, that's a great question because it kept the continuity by keeping Jeff Ulbrich here. And so the guys who played in the scheme and having that continuity, it is important because a lot of them were young last year learning it. Now they know it, and they know the purpose of it. And players excel when they know the purpose of this defense. So the guys in the secondary, for the most part, know exactly what's wanted. The big issue is up front now. Where's the pressure going to come from? We know James Pierce could be facing some potential discipline from the NFL. We don't know if or when that is coming down. And, unfortunately, Jalon Walker, we saw him go down at practice. It is feared that he's got an ACL. And, of course, that would take him out for the season, most likely. We'll see. Again, he's waiting for a further test on that. But those guys did work last year.
Right.
And it is tough to succeed in the NFL without pressure. And so they've got to find ways to either manufacture it or somebody has to step up. Linebacker, they're fine. Divine Diablo, did he show up last year or what?
Gosh,
he's so good.
Well, it was crazy because you didn't realize how much he mattered to that defense until you didn't have him for those 4 games in the middle of the season. You're like, where did he go and when is he coming back? He's just like, I think Jeff Ulbrich called him an avatar because he's so long and so tall. He just put him in a throwing window and it's like, well, can't do anything there.
And they needed that coverage ability. I mean, last year they didn't have it. And that's where when he was out, teams were like, let's go in that intermediate across the middle against the Falcons. So again, a lot of things have to come together. And that's an unfortunate thing. Every team is trying to build and have all this, but in terms of roster construction, I think the roster is pretty darn good. Just in terms of things fusing with the coaching and guys learning to play off of one another. That's what training camp is for. So we'll see how all of that comes together. It's not like this, like the cupboard's bare. There's clearly putty to shape right here. It's just quarterback's got to win a job. Quarterback's got to stay healthy. Got to find a right tackle who can play the blind side for the quarterback. And let's see how much 12 personnel. That's one thing Kevin Stefanski could absolutely go to is use two tight ends to help out that right tackle situation a lot too.
Hey, I think we'll see some 13 as well.
Well, that seems to be the thing in the NFL. Let's get under center and let's run 13.
Lucky number 13. Well, you know what else training camp is for? It's for catching up with Steve Wyche,
yes.
Chief National Reporter for NFL Network /ESPN.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, what's up, y'all? We're here with our latest edition of Know the Foe. We got the Cleveland Browns on tap. The Browns finished the 2025 season with a 5-12 record. They were in last place in the AFC North. They had one of the league's best defenses, though. Unfortunately, they had one of the league's worst offenses. And we'll start with the offense. The big storyline last season for Cleveland was 3 different starting quarterbacks: Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. When you start 3 quarterbacks in a season, usually it's not going to go super well for you. They ranked 30th in yards per game. They ranked 31st in points per game. And again, the quarterback rotation was a huge part in why their offense never felt like it was truly able to get in sync in the way that we have seen some Kevin Stefanski offenses get in sync in years past. Think back to some of the Nick Chubb days, Baker Mayfield, kind of that first year where the run and the pass really played off each other. They just couldn't really get that done last year because of that quarterback carousel. And also, that played a role in turnovers. The Browns turned the ball over at the 3rd highest rate in the league last season, which played into their 5-12 record, regardless of how good their defense was. They had a couple of rookie bright spots, though, on the offense, and these are a couple of players that I have a feeling we'll be seeing in Week 14 when these two teams face off. But Quinshon Judkins, the running back, he gained 827 yards on the ground last season, which ranked 3rd among rookie running backs. And then Harold Fannin Jr. was actually the team's leading receiver as a rookie tight end. He caught 72 passes for 731 yards and 6 touchdowns. So a couple of guys there, first year, real bright spots for the Browns. Defensively, Myles Garrett set the NFL single season sack record. Ever heard of him? 23 sacks last year. And the Browns finished 3rd in the league with 53 sacks. Notably, though, they were behind us, behind Atlanta, 57 sacks, never forget. Rookie linebacker Carson Schwezinger won Defensive Rookie of the Year after leading the Browns and all first-year players with 146 tackles. He has drawn comparisons to Luke Kuechly. I'm really excited to see Carson Schwezinger up close later this season. I think he's going to be an interesting player for a long time in this league. They were really, really strong against the pass last year and ranked 3rd in yards per game allowed through the air. So the offseason narrative, big transition that kind of also involves Atlanta a little bit because their former head coach in Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski, is now our new head coach here in Atlanta. So after parting ways with Kevin Stefanski, they hired Todd Monken to take over the job, and that is going to be really fascinating to see how the offense looks kind of under Todd Monken, because it is going to be a little bit of a different change. He is known for building around a really strong run game and utilizing tight ends. And the Browns are set up pretty well for that. Along with hiring Todd Monken, they had kind of a complete overhaul of their offensive line, which was a huge issue for them last season. So they traded for Titus Howard. They signed center guard Elgton Jenkins. They signed guard Zion Johnson. And then they re-signed Tevin Jenkins, who I believe missed most of last season due to injury. And then their first draft pick, 9th overall, went to Spencer Fano at offensive tackle. So there's a chance that we see 5 new starting offensive linemen for the Cleveland Browns this season. NFL.com gave the Browns an A- for their offseason. The Athletic named the Browns one of their winners of the offseason, and I thought this kind of summarized it nicely. The Browns hated to trade Garrett, one of the best and most beloved players in franchise history, but they did receive salary cap relief, a talented pass rusher in Jared Verse, and additional building blocks in the form of draft picks. That move, coupled with a much-needed offensive line overhaul and a promising draft, should land the Browns in a better place. So I thought that quote from the Athletic piece was really indicative of just kind of where they are and where we expect them to be moving forward. Biggest departure this offseason, Myles Garrett. Moving on. Their biggest addition this offseason, I think the entire offensive line, if we're going to count that as one move, is probably a pretty notable addition this offseason. In terms of one singular player, though, I think getting Jared Verse back in that Myles Garrett trade, he's obviously not Myles Garrett, but he's a pretty good young player who I think is going to be something for Cleveland for a little while. And offensively honorable mention to Casey Concepcion, who was drafted 24th overall and is a nice young receiver adding to that room as they continue to flesh it out. Finally, what is the team identity and how does that match up with the Atlanta Falcons, given that they're going to be meeting, I believe, December 13th? That's a long way away from right now. So take this with a big grain of salt. But really what I'm leaning on is, number one, the Browns defense that was so good last year. I expect that to be the case. Atlanta's defense was rock solid last year. Their pass rush was good. You know, again, it remains to be seen how the 2026 version is going to look, but I would expect this to be a little bit of a defensive battle with a lot of run game and a lot of tight end usage. And I think both teams are set up fairly well to play kind of the same style of game. Given what Kevin Stefanski has done in the past with 12, 13 personnel, we know what Monken likes to do. The defense, like, it's all there. There's the making of a ground and pound faster game than you may expect because without a lot of passing, the clock keeps running. So when that all unfolds in December, I'll be there to tell you I told you so. But until then, that was this edition of Know the Foe, Cleveland Browns edition, and we will see you next week for more training camp coverage. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you soon.